right, you guys have to excuse my lighting arrangement here. Um, I could do this video in my basement because I'm going to be covering some of the tools. So I'm actually out in my garage, and I don't have it completely wired in yet, so I'm limited in one outlet for power. Well, in today's video, I wanted to get into the Cadillac or the multi-variation lures, ones that cover multiple different styles of lures built into one. Um, One of the most best kept secrets, especially in the Great Lakes region, is the Cadillac fly. And the Cadillac fly, hopefully you guys can see, I'm going to try to get this in the picture as best I can. Okay, is a lure that is multifunctional. And when I say multifunctional is that the builder of this lure, this is a Muntz bait made by Andrew Muntz out of Minnesota. This is a show only variation. His box store variations use the flash bow, very little with feathers. But even his custom show pieces will have flash bow built into them. So a combination of materials. Now the uniqueness about the Cadillac style lures is that they're completely adjustable. So no matter what kind of water structure you're fishing around, the species of fish that you're going, you can get these to match any of those by simply changing out the weight system that is built into the lures or the flotation devices that are built into the lures. Hopefully these guys can see that here. It's a nylon sock, and inside of this nylon sock there's a flotation device or a lead device or a combination of the two. Andrew uses weedless hook setups. Let me see if I can pop this one out. You're obviously not going to be able to see that on camera very much. But he uses a fixed treble hook, follow treble hook at the back on a solid leader with a mass-produced fishing type head. Now, the combinations that you can make out of this one single lure is endless. There's hundreds of different variations of action, color, makeup that you can put onto this one skeleton of lures. On top of that, he also sells attachments that go onto the front of the lure. So whether it's a spinner blade, a lead weight, different kinds of spinners, or you can use them without any kind of front device. And by the way that this is constructed, or the skeleton with that flotation device, it can be changed. These are some of the earlier versions that he did that does not have a snap on it. It's almost like a belt system. Or like on your jacket, just a regular a button system that you can unsnap, change the internals, or change these belts to different configurations. This one here does not have any lead weight into it, so it's actually a surface lure. So that hence why it has the surface type prop blade onto it. It still has that weedless treble hook on the back. And it was just miraculous. When I got into building lures about 8 years ago, I had no idea that these were even around. I had no clue. He also makes smaller versions of this, so if you're a fly fisherman, you can also buy the fly variations of this and toss them with your fly rod. The amount of quality and detail of material that goes into this definitely constitutes the price. I bought these two from Andrew at the Musky Expo 4 years ago at $60 a piece. You can buy one and buy all kinds of different attachments in your favorite color, in different floating arrangements, all kinds of different combinations. This one here is actually a weighted version. So you can see a little bit of an arch to it. So the framing or the skeleton of it does have a straight pin to it, but the way that he ties it off, it gives it that profile of an arch profile, so that when it swims in the water, it likes to dive, mimicking a frog. Another thing that's ingenious of Andrew is that he uses soft plastics, but instead of just letting them hang off the back, he has the coiled ties built into the frame. So you can twist these on and off, change them out for different colors. He also runs pipe cleaners through the interior of the soft plastic. So if you want this to run with an outside leg arrangement, all you have to do is bend that pipe cleaner to the direction that you want. Okay, that is just, Andrew put a lot of thought into these. In my opinion, he is in the top 10 easily of the world's best bait makers. He obviously ties off the flies in multiple different variations. It takes him approximately an hour to crank one of these out. He'll have, containers full of the main skeleton of the lure, but then you can tell him exactly what you want. He can make it to a specific build like this. This one actually has a lead weight that is attached to the front, so it allows it to go run even deeper and bounce it off the bottom like a frog would be. Or you can run it without the weight system and run these around lily pads, and because of the weedless design and the way these go, you can mimic a frog that is going across the top of the lily pads. So they're great for bass, northern pike, and muskies. They just give you another look. The combination. See if I can get the... What's really nice is that Andrew does not skimp on material. He puts a lot of it on there, so even when it's wet, it still has 100% coverage over the top of the skeleton. That's well as best as I can pull it back to show you guys here. But just immaculate. When I seen these, I had no intention of actually buying lures because I'm a bait builder myself, that I have so many. But when I seen these, I had to have some. Okay, so not only does it sell to fishermen, but it's also going to catch fish. Very simple as that. Another lure that isn't necessarily considered to be a Cadillac, like Munt's lures, but it is a variation of a chatterbait. Todd at T&A Angry Dragon Lures makes some variations with different kind of furs and materials too, and multiple jointed variations. Okay, so this one's actually got three joints within it. A trailing tail for more action. Okay, and it's got a hook at the trailer, and it also has a head hook. Now the head of this lure, the Angry Dragon, is obviously a mass-produced heavy metal, so you can control the depth that this runs. You can let it go all the way down to the bottom and bounce it off the bottom. You can run it at the surface where the chatterbait blade starts to make a lot of wake on the top of the water. And he also sells minis, which is basically just the front section. So that would be the mini, and this is the longer variation. At the time I purchased this, at the same Musky Expo in Wausau, about 4 years ago, these were running in between that $27 to $35 range. And I'll tell you that there's the amount of material that's into these. In order to duplicate this or make it yourself, you could not bring in to that cost. Devin, I believe, is his significant other. So Todd and Devin, they make these by the hundreds and in very different variations, all using that Angry Dragon heavyweight head and the larger chatterbait blade. He is on, if you check out T&A Tackle on YouTube, there's multiple videos of these out there. If you're a fan of chatterbaits, your tackle box should definitely have a T&A Dragon within the box. Simple as that. Any combination that you can find, color, material combination, they make them. You can find them online. You can order your own. I'm sure with everything that's going on with the economy right now, the prices might be a little bit more than that, but it's definitely worth the value. Because you can change these up. You can split the sections off, add your own tails. If it's a 3-section like this and you want it shorter to that, that 6-inch range, you can just move the rear section up to the front section. You still have the twin hook design, and you have a chatterbait that will run at multiple different levels. The only thing that I would say would be a benefit or a modification to these is to running the weedless hooks like the Muntz lures. Now they're not completely weedless no matter what, but having those little extra tabs to cover those hooks does keep out some of the weeds. That's the only modification that I would do to these if I was going to pick them up and use them in really heavy cover. That's it. All right. So those are the Cadillac flies that I have. For multi-function lures, let me see if I can remember exactly where I put mine in this box here. Give me a second. Oh, come on. Of course, they all got to be hooked into each other. All right, as far as multifunctional lures, since we were just talking about the chatterbait, this is my variation of a rise and dive / chatterbait, crankbait, shallow or deep diving, semi-surface lure. Okay, this is the 454. This is one of my creations here. It mimics the shape of a suic, but again, I go with a little bit larger profile. Instead of having a flat back or a flat belly, they're rounded off to allow more roll into the lure. And the way that the hardware is mounted, you can change the chatterbait blade into multiple different action type devices. The way it is set up now, it is set up for a chatterbait. You can put adjustable tails on them just like a suic. This is the actual suic style tail. You can bend them to whatever action you want to have into it. The weighting system on this one, I used permanent anchors, so you can move either lead weights or washers to multiple different locations to get more of a head down action or a tail down action. Also with the chatterbait blade, by taking out the bottom screw eye, it also has a line tie in the original location like a suic would have. So if you take that blade off, you would have just a regular standard rise and dive. All right, now this one is actually made out of the foam that I told you guys about. A small cell machinable foam, so it's very light, it's buoyant, but you can machine it and add in stuff, and it's rock solid. It lightens up this lure. This size lure in wood would easily be over 3 ounces. This is just with the weights added onto it now, it's just over 2 ounces. With the chatterbait blade, it's still well with underneath 3 ounces. Let me take off the rest of this hardware. Like I said, there's all kinds of just, hardware store type bolts and washers on it to weight it down. Like I said, certain manufacturers will put lead adjustment pieces onto their lures and specifically sell those. It's a lot cheaper. Just go to the hardware store. It doesn't look as nice, but on the next lure I'll show you how to hide those. But now with the base model, Rise and Dive. I showed you the chatterbait version, but now in order to change this to a deep diving, say a trolling lure, I'm just going to mount this blade. By the way, this is a blade from Ron and Helen's Musky Shop. It is called the Stud Finder, and you notice that it has 3 holes into it. Bottom, lower, circular hole, and then a slot in the middle. Mounting the hardware on the nose of this lure, that would be the original line tie. I also use that as an alignment stud. So by putting the alignment studs through the slot and then using the eye screw through the bottom, tightening it down, finger tight, and then using the line tie itself for your fishing line or your leader, it now changes this rise and dive into a much stronger rise and dive, or with a continuous retrieve, it turns it into a deep diver. And you can bend that blade to whatever angle you want to control how deep it goes, how shallow it runs. You can add more weight, to add less buoyancy to it. In order to change it to a trolling lure, again, you just back out that eye screw. Like I said, this seems like a long time in these videos, but when you're on the water, it literally takes, just a fraction of a second. You then screw it back into the nose, but this time I'm going underneath the original line tie stud. Okay, so I'm going into the nose area, lining the holes up best I possibly can. There we go. I said sorry about the lighting here, guys. I'm stuck under a heat lamp. As you guys can see, I just built this new bench to get all my tools in one area. I had my drill press actually sitting underneath a bench in my other garage on the concrete floor. And with all the condensation that we had this year, the base that's made out of cast iron actually rusted. So I had to go through and redo the whole entire thing and I get it up off the floor. But anyway, you can change now that blade to the bottom position, still using that same line tie, or you can use the eye screw as a line tie and becomes a deep diver or a trolling lure. Right, so that's why I came up with the name 454. For you guys that are new members to the channel, you realize I'm also into cars. So 454 being a big block Chevy orientation. Some of my fishing lures I make that are convertible like this, that change, I name them after engine combinations. That just kind of differentiates me from other people. By changing the blade back the other direction, just flipping it around and attaching it again through that stud, the mainline stud, and putting the eye screw back in there, it gives it more of a flat nose to it without putting that all the way back in there. Now I have a flat, fast action jerkbait. Easy enough. Okay. The other variation that I made doesn't have the amount of combinations that it does, but I still do the double hardware nose. But the variation of this is to hide the lead weight and also make it adjustable. So instead of using standard hardware store bolts and studs, I carved out the bottom. And what I basically did is I took a chain, like an entry door chain lock you guys would normally see like at a hotel or whatever, that you can, after locking the door, you can put the chain restrictor on there. That track, the metal track that goes on the door, fits inside of here. And then you can just use a regular nut and bolt with a lead system, adjust it on here, tighten it up, and then you can move it front to back into the slot, and it is hidden within the profile of the lure. And you can make that weight as large as you possibly want, depending on the depth or how strong you want to to tilt in the water. It still has the original design of the Suic style lure, but it's just round, so it gets a lot more roll in the water when it's doing different things. This one is a foil. It is also the foam, so this is only 1.5 ounces. With the hooks on it, it'd be just underneath 2 ounces, and then whatever lead weight you put onto it obviously adds to it. So this is what I consider the 327. So it doesn't have as many variations built into it as the 454, and it's a smaller version, hence the smaller cubic inch designation of 327. Okay, so that's one of my late warm temperature lures. So once the temperatures start to get above 75 to 80 degrees, the fish become more stagnant and lazy. This is something I throw at them because it's going to run a lot closer to the surface or over the top of the weeds or through the thinner weeds. This is the type of lure that I run in those situations. Again, color combination, a foil silver back, painted compared to color shift, and there's some metallic sparkles into the paint too, so this mimics more of that, I would say not necessarily a walleye, but a dirty water fish, whether it be something that eats crayfish, bass, smallmouth bass, that color variation. The hooks on these variations, I only have 2, but I make sure that the rear portion hook is close enough that it can go right to the tail, and which is a small rubber band. If I want to keep that out of the way, I can rubber band that around the metal tail and still be able to adjust that. The head hook obviously hangs down lower than the metal leading hook, so if there's a head hit to it, the hooks will get into it. Okay. So that's the Cadillac lures that I have for this video. We're at 22 minutes. I have longer videos, and I've been known to do that with multiple different channels on YouTube. I have longer videos, but I cover a lot of different content. I don't cover individual lures, and I'm not all at the lake showing you how they swim. Okay, I'm explaining to you the engineering behind them, and then you can decipher for yourself what you think sounds cool or would be effective in your area. Just by changing the little subtle things like that again, between a flat stick, broomstick I call them, of the Suics, just going a little bit more round, adds just a little bit more action to them. And building the multi-functional or Cadillac style lures, again, instead of having a huge tackle box that takes up your whole entire boat, or even a Lakewood that has 100 positions within it, a carry along or something like that, you can reduce the amount of lures that you have in your tackle box by going to the Cadillac style. You know, between the Muntz lures and all the different combinations take up a lot less space, and then throwing in a solid body lure like this, you're covering pretty much every kind of lure out there other than the surface prop style lure, but that you can do with the spinner bait. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about today, is, speaking of, I got one more lure to show you. I do not know the name of this company, so if you guys watch this and know the name of this company or this builder, please share it down in the comments. I seen them at the Chicago Musky Expo approximately 4 years ago, and the line of lures that they have are also going to be the combination of a Cadillac lure, where it has multiple different functions in the build itself. So let me see if I can get this on. If you guys can see that, you have jerk baits and crankbaits using the cellophane or the flash bow type bodies. They are not a solid leader. They're a cable that goes from the head through it. So as those baits are going through the water, the action of that head section is causing the flash bow and the material to shake back and forth. Like I said, I have to apologize because I don't remember the individual's name. But the thing with musky lure builders is that you'll have people that want to get into it and they decide they want to start making money to it and go to all these expos. You have to sell a lot of lures to just pay for your booth at one of these expos, on top of your cost of actually building the lures. Okay, so realize that if you're getting into this about money, you really have to think about how much you're spending and how much you're recuperating in from actually selling lures. That was my biggest mistake. Building small batch lures, you're not making enough profit to be going over to the Musky Expos and paying $2, $3, $4, $5, or even $1,000 for a booth for a 2 or 3 day event. That takes a lot of lures to recuperate that cost. So that's why I recommend, if you have a local like antique store or bait shop that's willing to let you sell your lures at their shop for like a commission, that's the kind of way to go. And once word spreads of having those, you might start getting some orders that come in. Now, I went to one Musky Expo 3 years ago, which would have been the Wausau Musky Expo, and that's where I met a lot of other bait builders. I paid the $400 entry fee to have the booth for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and other than my military builds that I donated for a veteran type thing, I sold 20 lures, and out of those 20 lures, I maybe made $100 profit. Okay, so now I'm still in a hole $300. But that allowed me to get my business card out and talk to individuals and to get to know what my lures are. And out of that, I've had custom orders called into me. That way I've recuperated my cost into the lures and profitability. All right, so these guys that are building mass amounts of lures and putting them out at multiple different locations and waiting for that money to come back in, it takes a long time. So if you're getting into this, don't expect to get rich overnight. It's not going to happen. Once you're established, you'll have a consistent customer base, but you're always going to have to be changing up models and bringing out new modifications, like in the Muntz lures. Like I said, he had changed that belt system with a snap so it can be interchangeable. That was a modification he's made in the last 3 years so that it customizes everything even more. So realizing by kicking out 100,000 copies of your lure until those are all gone or until you come up with new models, you're going to be sitting in a hole for a while. If you're looking at doing this as a hobby, keeping the cost down, I've talked about the different paints and how to do it cheaper than going to airbrush stuff. And including all the tools you need. Let me just walk you down the line some of the basic tools that you're going to need if you want to get into this and be able to pop out lures made out of wood or foams or even hard plastics fairly quickly. Obviously, we start out with the bandsaw. The best quality bandsaw that you can afford, you're going to want to get. This just happens to be a Craftsman 10-inch, and there's features that are built into this that are not top quality. This is about the cheapest thing you got. Can come upon like Harbor Freight, quality level. I have multiple different blades for it. It can't handle really heavy materials. Just the variation of it. It doesn't even have the wheel bearing guides that are built around the blade. You can't get the blade tight enough to do thicker pieces. So this is something I reserve for balsa wood, very thin pieces of basswood, or attachments. So if I'm doing any kind of thin metal sheeting, I'll put a metal blade on here that has really sharp turns. That might be too heavy for a miter saw. Miter saw, the blades are very thin. You guys can see they're not. There we go. Miter saw, you can make very sharp turns, but the blades are very thin, so they can't handle a lot of heat going through thicker materials. So again, that's going to be saved for like the balsa wood or connections or attachments, I should say. Going down the line, a lathe. Anytime that you are making any kind of round cylinder type device, a lathe comes in handy. A belt sander and multiple sanders of all different kinds definitely come in handy. With the foam lures, it only takes your hand and a piece of sandpaper to form them out, and small little utility knives or X-Acto knives to carve out the foam. It's that simple. That's why I went to the foam. It's just so much quicker. With these sanders, expect to get a lot of dust, period. So if you're working with cedar wood, remember the fumes of cedar are actually harmful to your health. So that's one of the reasons why I'm out in the garage today, and I've moved all my tools out in the garage. Benchtop grinders for all your metal hardware, blades, finishing touches on stuff, and then obviously drill presses. So anytime you're putting some lead hole weights or eye holes into the lure itself, a nice good quality benchtop drill is going to come in handy. You can do it with a handheld drill, but it's just not going to be as consistent, and it's not going to be as neat, and you're not going to be able to control the consistency of the depth of your hole as easily. I mean, you can wrap the drill bit with tape so you're only going that far, but as far as getting it centered, it's not the way to go. A good cheap benchtop grinder or a benchtop drill press is the way to go. Another thing that's just out of your eyesight is a tabletop saw. Okay, this is a wrench for the blade. This is just a Menards Performax. I believe it's Master Force is the brand that they have there. Between all of these tools right here, you're looking at less than $300. Nothing really high quality. The one thing I would definitely suggest on purchasing and paying a little bit more for is your not belt saw, bandsaw. Excuse me. That's probably the most used initial tool to get the basic form of any of your lures. Even with all these tools added in, like $300, like I said, it's affordable to get into, and obviously these tools can be used on other home projects also. If you're into cars, they're also another thing that come in handy. A lot of use out of the drill press and the grinders for all kinds of metal work. So with that, I'm just over 30 minutes. The last topic for this video, as the title reads, is that I want to get into, like I said, I've been building musky lures since about 2014, but I didn't really get heavy into the biology and the quality of our fisheries until about 4 years ago at the Wausau Musky Expo. After speaking to the Wisconsin DNR and multiple of the other fishing clubs that are in central Wisconsin, I tried forming Project Roundtable. For some of the guys that have known me from my builds, they're going to say that I kind of raised up a little bit of drama, and I started questioning a lot of different things. And I guess that's just my nature. When I'm interested in something, I try to get deep into the details of what's going on behind the scenes. And Project Roundtable was designed to give an opportunity for musky fishermen and guides and biologists across the country to have one source, one website to be able to bring their information in without the pressure of having sponsors pushing them in one direction, or one lure maker or one reel maker or one rod maker, to stand out above all the rest. Throughout that research and that attempt to gather this information, I was put in contact with multiple different states and regions of Canada and Europe, talking about the quality of our fisheries, the restocking practices. Okay, without getting into the long story of it, realized that I raised a lot of eyebrows. I drew attention to a lot of stuff that was going on. And I found out that the Kentucky fisheries, out of all of them that I had basically had conversations with, were the only ones that were really growing their water quality in their fisheries. Not to say other ones aren't attempting it, but now getting back into these videos, back into the bait building, I just seen a video released yesterday. You're gonna have to excuse me. I can't remember the channel name of where this was on, but it was a West Virginia biologist going out collecting um, specimens, mostly male musky specimens that they needed to take back to the hatchery to, get the combination going. It was approximately a 30 to 45-minute video, if I recall. And one of the individuals on the boat, the guy that was recording the video, was an outsider. Okay, so he wasn't a biologist. He was along just to help out, to be involved. And they went up this river system in West Virginia. I believe it was the Ohio River, if I'm not mistaken. One of the tributaries that travels through West Virginia. And they went out to collect specimens. After my research, just within a short amount of time, like I said, this last 3 to 4 years, finding out what's going on behind the scenes and then watching this video just made me irate. It is so important of what our natural resource departments are doing as far as our fishing habitat and what the quality of water is going on within our regions. Here in central Wisconsin, the main body of water that I'm around, it was the Wisconsin River, Lake Petenwell, Castle Rock, Lake Dubay area. Those are my home pounding grounds, I guess if you want to call it, short distance drives to go fishing. I took a drive yesterday before watching this video, and from basically Stevens Point, Wisconsin, 50 miles south through Castle Rock, the water level was 6 to 10 feet low. Now, we are not in California. We do not have a drought here right now. Okay? They're either holding that water back because they're doing some work on one of the dam systems where they have to hold the water back. But I'll tell you what, anytime water, especially dirty water, dark stained water like we have in the Wisconsin River system here, anytime that water sits for a long time and gets hot, like we had 100-degree weather for a couple weeks here, it depletes the oxygen level in the water to the point where any of our pride game fish are killed off. Now, there's multiple individuals that I have connections to or I've talked to. They have talked about the water qualities for years, for up to 50 years. Okay, Rich Reinhardt is an individual that runs the Wausau Musky Expo. He's originally from Black River Falls, Wisconsin. He guided up in the northern part of Wisconsin, Hayward area, for years. Also, Larry Ramsell, who is a well-known North American and even world-renowned musky and northern pike SX family researcher, measuring for world records and stuff like that. He's been on multiple different YouTube channels discussing this stuff. Today's Angler did a legend series, included Larry. A lot of the stuff that he said that has stood the test of time should really wake people up. Now, if you can imagine, from the 1950s through the 1980s, the water quality in Wisconsin had the ability to produce world record size fish, large fish, and there wasn't as many fishermen that were targeting those species. What has changed today is that you have hundreds of thousands of individuals that specifically target game fish, whether it be walleye or northern pike, muskies, period. And we have a complete imbalance in our waters across the U.S. There is no doubt about it. our fishing quality, no matter where you are within the United States and even some portions of Canada, has suffered and is drastically reduced to what it was even 25 years ago. So you hear me in videos talking about studies that were done 20 years ago, or restocking efforts that were done back, over the years for the state of Wisconsin, realizing that not enough is being done. Now, I give all kinds of credit to the individuals that are attempting to do so. But when you stock fish into an area, one location, and the waters are infested with invasive species such as zebra mussels or certain kinds of weeds that kill off oxygen into the water, you literally are putting your efforts and spending your money on fish that are not even surviving 48 hours. So say you are a musky club and you're spending, say, $12 per hatchling to be raised and released into an area. Say you have a couple hundred of them that you're releasing into them. 48 hours later, maybe 30 of those 300 has survived past 48 hours. Now, I'm not a money consortium or anything like that to realize to get your money's worth out of it, but I would say that's not getting your money's worth out of it. The money is being spent in to put the fish into the water, but no biology is being spent on getting rid of the invasive species that are killing the game fish off. Now, I fish all over the state of Wisconsin and small portions of Minnesota. I know that just in my local location, the river system that has been lowered, when I was a teenager back in the 1980s through the 1990s, was a prime fishing spot. We never had to travel to go fishing. We could go, literally blocks away from the house, catch walleye, bass, northern pike, and muskie on any given day of the week. To the point where even during the walleye run, you could have your maximum 2 fishing poles per individual, and you were continuously busy taking fish off and setting them up with new minnows and stuff like that for hours on end. It was that good of a quality. Now you can go to that same location, same stretch of river, and you can fish for months and maybe catch one walleye that's not even a legal size to keep. Now, I'm a catch and release type person. I don't eat fish out of the river because of the high contents of mercury that's in the water, right? There's not enough abundance of fish to be eating fish out of this system. Period. The population is so small. Well, what I can say is that the biologists, the new biologists that are coming into, say they've been into the job for 10, 15, even 20 years, have absolutely no idea what the hell they're doing. It's just the common sense. Anybody that looks at it, the common sense is of the biology that's going on is not working. And it's easy to see why it's not. All right, so that's why when I dig into things, I look to see what's really going on and how it's affecting a lot of different things. Well, our river systems, because of the water levels, are being changed all the time. But within the last 10 years, the water levels have been changed so much we cannot get natural weed growth into the water, and the water is not oxygenated enough to carry and support the life of game fish. Period. So why spend the money, these musky clubs, why spend the money to release and put muskies into the water that they're literally killing them naturally because of low oxygen levels or invasive species, or releasing all the fish from one small little location? 30 fish out of 300. That's 48 hours. And within 325 days, you might have 3 fish that have survived. And out of those 3 fish, how many of them will ever make it to 40 inches? Okay? It's not conducive of good tourism. It's not conducive of a good, healthy water system. So that's why I have a lot of faith of why people in musky clubs are being forced to know they are being forced because they can't necessarily go and buy fish and just freely stock the fish. They have to go through the Department of Natural Resources where, when, and how many that they can release, and the money that they raise to do that has to go to a university of Stevens Point, to their biology department, that has completely failed, like I said, within the last 20 years of guys that have come out of there. They have no idea what the hell they're doing. Okay? Comparing that to the individuals out of Kentucky that are growing an almost non-existent muskie population to a world-renowned decent population of muskie, and then watching this video last evening with the West Virginia biologist, it starts with the training that these guys are taking in school and how they're being raised. They do not know how to make the connection between the water quality, the weed and natural fish species that are in the water, the stocking procedures. It's a joke. Something has to be done, and right now with the economy and inflation, all that stuff, it's not going to be a good time to do it. But right now our fishing population is taking a dive. There was a third-party test done by the Kentucky biologist here in the state of Wisconsin. So it was a third-party private biology test over a certain period of time. I believe it was 2018 and 2020, so a 2-year period of time. From 2018 to 2020, the game fish population in the state of Wisconsin was reduced by 80% statewide. 80%. Okay? Now, when this whole C-19 thing kicked off and everybody was locked into fishing in Canada, we couldn't cross the borders and that, people are still going out fishing because they could go out in the water without, mandates and all that stuff, right? More fishermen were staying in the northern portion of Wisconsin because gas prices at that time were still affordable. People were still trying to get away from their jobs and have vacations. And the waters in northern Wisconsin were pounded even harder. Now, the water system in Minocqua, Wisconsin, which used to be a prime walleye, musky body of water, is now going on its 7th year of walleye-free fishing. Okay, you cannot target walleye on that body of water. No catch and release, or it's all catch and release. You catch them, you got to give them back or throw them back. It was initially planned for a 5-year hiatus. It is going on its 7th year, and biologists have not been able to change the waters. Now, there's other spearing considerations coming into it that politics does not want to get involved with. But as fishermen, as sportsmen, we need to be aware of it, and we cannot beat around the bush about the facts. Simple as that. Individuals are getting paid to do the job. Federal employees, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the individuals that work for them are getting paid by federal funds that are paid for by all the taxpayers, obviously, and the job that they're doing is not even close to the amount that has to be done in order to revive our waters. Simple as that. You're not going to get that at any of these other YouTube channels. They're promoting their lure or their sponsorship, or giving you the entertainment of YouTube videos. I'm telling you how it actually is. It is very hard to sit back and keep interest into this sport knowing that travesty, that devastation is happening. It completely turns me off from actually going musky fishing. Tourism for Wisconsin for musky fishing is a $30+ million tourism a year. $30 million. With inflation, the lower fish population and less fishermen actually doing it, the fish population is not growing. The pressure of the systems is not being reduced at an amount that can support it. That's money to our tourism. That's people's livings that is being reduced. It's not good for people, and it's not good for our natural resources. So this is the last portion. I'm going to get this in an hour. If you're honestly a individual that cares about your natural resources, get involved, ask questions, and see where things are actually working and try to duplicate those areas. Kentucky is doing a great job. West Virginia, the video I seen last night, no way. No way is that working. Wisconsin is obviously not working. Minnesota, the fish population in Minnesota is nowhere near the quality of what it was. If you don't want to take my word for it, if you go to Lee Tauschen, or Tauchen, he used to be a guide, Mill Locks. He has a video on his YouTube channel of today's angler that he talks about his years guiding on Mill Locks and the fisheries around that area, of the quality of the fish he was catching. Okay, the Linder's fishing edge. Individuals catching 57, 58, 59-inch fish yearly. You're not going to see that on any modern day YouTube channels. Now guys are getting excited trying to get 50-inch fish, right? Or they're going out for a day and completely getting skunked. Now you have details why that is happening. And as sportsmen, whether you're a hunter, fisherman, any kind of athletic person at all that believes in our hobbies, our interests, that should just piss you off. And the only way that we can initially do anything about it is to consciously take efforts into ourselves to make sure that the fish that we are catching are safely handled and released. Do not fish for muskies I'm going to call them endangered, because it seems like the populations get so low they're endangered. If the water temperatures are really high, forego fishing for them. All right? If you own a cabin that's on a lake, you don't necessarily like the weeds that are out in your beach area. Don't be going into your home communities or homeowners' communities and ordering weed killers. You're killing a natural resource that we all have here. It's not just the front of your cabin. The waterway belongs to everyone. For the guys that are all jet skis, just pounding it all, realize that it might be fun, even if you're doing it responsibly, but the jet skis themselves are kicking up soot. They're causing the dirtiness in the water to be spread out more, running over fish. If it does happen, should be reduced. You're not only pissing off the guys that are Sunday driving in their pontoons, or the fishermen that are trying to be seclusive, and floating across the water in a 20-foot wide boat and downriggers and all that stuff. But the jet skis really kill it off. And if you're new to musky fishing, learn how to use the proper equipment before you even get on the water. If you're not part of a musky club, is it worth the yearly cost to get involved and the time and effort to go out and having restocking to get in there and at least voice your opinion and question the way that they're doing things to see if it's actually working. Tag the fish if you can get a chance. Go to the releases. Suggest releasing them from different locations. Suggest releasing them at a better time of the year. If it costs $14 instead of $12 to have that hatchling in the fishery for an extra 2 months to give them 2 inches more of size before they're released, that $2 is going to be worth a lot more down the road when you start getting in better quality fish. Okay, $30 million, that's being hit to maybe $15 to $20 million of tourism now. What's that million, $10, $12 million difference if it's a $2 difference in a fish? Okay. So with that, hopefully I haven't bored you all to death, but I've known individuals that have disagreed with me, and all I do is challenge you to actually look long term, look at the big picture. What our qualities have happened over the last 10, 20, 30 years, and what's different about it, and what is actually causing our fishing population to go down. Every single aspect. Overfishing, high pressure, water quality, stocking efforts, biology, spearing. Okay, the gene pool, that's another one. Leech Lake strains, are they actually as stout as natural grown strains of muskies and Essex family? Those are questions that you need to just ask yourself and bring them up to individuals that are into the sport, because those are the questions that need to be answered in order to fix what we have right now. And right now, obviously being June of 2022, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. And as far as being at the top of our priority list, of being on the cusp of what's going on worldwide right now, if you enjoy the sport and you want to have a future in the sport at all, dedicate some time, maybe dedicate some money out of your pocket, smart, in a smart way. Don't just be shoving out cash to these musky clubs. Like I said, the cash that they do have is being dictated by the Department of Natural Resources. If there's ways that you can spend the money to share information or get the information out to these organizations, that's the best way that you're going to get the best bang for the buck. So with that, hopefully the Cadillacs made some sense to you guys, save you a few extra bucks, even though you're spending more on the month's lures, the $60 lures. Realize that you're getting 5, 6 or more lures in one. The 454 style convertible lures, realize again that's saving you from buying 5, 10 different colored and sized suics or rise and dive type lures or crankbaits. When one lure for $50 will do all of them and save room in your boat. If you're getting into building yourself, foams is definitely a way to go. I think I'm the only musky bait builder that uses them. I know there's other bass building individuals that use closed cell foam. I'm the only one that uses the combination of pouring my own foam. Some of the tools that are not necessarily necessary for building musky lures, but are definitely helpful. You don't have to go crazy with the cost. And even if I were to take all these lures or all these tools and combine them, into one area, it takes up literally a 4 foot by 4 foot area. So if you don't have a big garage, or you have just a small space in the basement or a little office room, realize that you can get into the hobby with bare minimum stuff. And then also the biology part, end of this video. Hopefully it was informational for you. Individuals that were included with the Project Roundtable were some of the bigger names in the industry. Joe Bucher was aware of it. Pete Mania was aware of it. The individuals at Ron and Helen's Musky Shop were aware of it. The Departments of Natural Resources from Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Indiana, and Tennessee were all aware of the system that were going on, and they all received questionnaires for starting up this website. The timing of the C-19 shut it down completely. But it's definitely something that somebody, not me, would start another interest into this Project Roundtable as time allows. If we ever get back to normal at all, one of the things that we can do is form out and combine our efforts countrywide, North America-wide, or even international, with the Northern Pike population in the Netherlands and that stuff. That's another thing that I found out. Just one minute over an hour, so I'm going to make this very quick. Speaking of species and strains of muskies, you guys are aware of 3. Okay, you have spotted muskies, which are normally Leech Lake strains. You have the tiger muskie, which is a combination of Northern Pike and muskie. You have barred muskie, okay, and you also have the solid, no marking type muskie, so that'd be 4. You're also aware that the Essex family has multiple other species within the family. Northern Pike, pickerel, okay. In my last 3 years of research, talking to both fair weather fishermen, summertime, and also ice fishermen here in the state of Wisconsin, I've been able to come up and verify that we have 4 additional strains of Essex family here in the state of Wisconsin, and 3 of those are not natural to North America. Physical, biological confirmation that 3 of those were not North American species of muskies or Essex family. They're actually European strains. How are European strain fish making it here to Wisconsin? Okay, maybe in a future video I will show you the pictures of those fish, some of the paperwork that I have with it, with the Project Roundtable. That was one of the topics that came up. So our biology departments are not reporting it. You're hearing it here first. Working with a biologist, not for the Natural Resources of Kentucky, but a biologist, a former retired biologist of Kentucky, is how I was able to confirm that. That should definitely raise some eyebrows across the nation. So far, it is only Wisconsin that has those 3 strains. Where are they coming from? All right, so with that, I'm going to let you guys go. Hope you enjoyed. If I put you to sleep, I'm sorry. Well, with that, we'll get into other lures, other hardware, whether it be leaders, line, fishing poles, reels, and future content, along with my race car. If you're interested in going fast on wheels, I'm going to be getting into that pretty soon. That's the reason why I had to clean up my garage, because the race car is coming in here. Also, I have the engine that has to be finished right there. So that's going to take up some of my hotter temperature months of the year. July and August, I'm going to be working on the car because the water temperatures are going to be too hot to go musky fishing. And I'll get back into that again in August, fall area. So with that, good luck on the water. Catch you guys later.